I'm back. I'm just kidding. Let's continue watching this.
Guards that they claim came in contact with John's arm. None. There was no blood, no tissue, no skin, no DNA on a single shard of plastic that they claim cut deep abrasions into John's arm, the arm that you saw overhead. The DNA that was actually found, the actual science will show, was found outside of the taillight housing where anyone with access to that vehicle would have touched. And it wasn't just one male's DNA. In that exact same sample, there were 3 men found.
Oh, wow, 3's a lot.
So unless the Commonwealth is going to shift their theory that SUV hit 3 men that night, their entire theory...
Yo, Alexa, go to sleep. What you doing? Yo! Let me get the wire. Over there, what you doing, Lexi? Hello?
And that DNA revealed count 5 unidentified males.
Over there, let's go. Pa la cama.
That John was injured someplace warmer and had to be moved onto that lawn. 5 unidentified males touching that shoe. You'll also learn that you are not the first person, not the first to hear about the Commonwealth's theory of this case, that John was hit by an SUV. That's their theory. The Commonwealth presented this exact same claim to their own medical examiner, a woman by the name of Dr. Irene Scorti-Bello. And you'll learn that after reviewing what's called a law enforcement accident notifier, with law enforcement's theory of the collision written in it, defined in it, after conducting the autopsy herself, after examining John's injuries in detail, she refused to conclude that John's death was a homicide based on the Commonwealth's presentation and their theory. That's right. The Commonwealth's own medical examiner will not deem the manner of death in this case, a homicide. She won't do it. But they're nonetheless back again trying to present the exact same theory to you in this trial. Again,
So if it's not homicide, why she's
the
on
evidence
trial
will
then?
show that is reasonable doubt.
Shark?
Throughout this
How you
trial,
doing?
the Commonwealth will try to convince you of paranormal events, phones calling themselves, messages deleting
Hi.
themselves, Google searches made and then
Hi.
unmade, evidence magically appearing and evidence magically disappearing. But all that smoke and all those mirrors will not ever reach their burden. Because that's what this case is ultimately about. It's about the Commonwealth's burden proof.
I'm good.
You'll learn that during the trial, the Commonwealth bears the highest burden known to our justice system. They must prove every element of every charge beyond a reasonable doubt and to a moral certainty. And you'll learn that moral certainty means the highest level
weed,
of certainty
so don't-
known in human affairs. It's not a small thing.
No,
They're
no, I
not going to be able
won't.
to do that. Not when every piece of this case was handled by a disgraced investigator with
Thank
a
you,
motive
bro.
to protect
Like,
his friends.
give me a
Not when
like.
the physical evidence contradicts
subscribe.
their very theory. Not when their own medical examiner won't call this case a homicide based on the exact theory that they're presenting to you. Not when the conduct of those in the House and the utter lack of investigation.
Don't worry about
speaks
it, bro.
volumes about those who actually have something
Happy
to hide.
birthday.
By the end of this trial, you'll conclude that Karen Reed is not guilty of hitting John O'Keefe with her SUV.
It's cannabis.
There was no collision. She's the victim of a botched and biased and corrupted investigation that was never about the truth, folks. It was about preserving loyalty.
You guys here.
You'll find that this case is the very definition of reasonable doubt. And at the end of this trial, we'll ask you to return the only verdicts, all three of
Justin,
them,
don't worry about
that are
it.
consistent with the evidence, the science, the truth, and justice. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Folks, why don't we take our morning recess?
Yeah, I'm sure.
You are muted.
Yeah, I don't smoke cigarettes. Don't forget to subscribe, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. See you soon. Toka. Roblox. Now what happens to what? I get high. So high. I wanna get high. So high.
29th, 2022, that morning, around 6:04, did you hear a tone or did you hear an alarm?
So the tones
Because that
went
helps
off
with
right as I
my
entered the
anxiety,
building.
my
Tell us what a tone is.
depression,
So the tone
back
is the emergency
pain,
alert tone.
neck pain,
In the town camp, we have
headaches,
three. We have one for fire,
migraines.
we have one for investigation, and we have one for EMS. The EMS tones went off and the lights came on. Whenever there's the tones go off, the lights come on as well. I was just walking into the building when the tones went off and the lights came on.
And is there information that accompanies the tone, information about the call? that's
Exactly, and
used
it's better than
response?
Yes,
painkillers.
so after the tones had cleared, there's an overhead dispatch, which is our dispatch center, communicates to us before we get in the trucks and on the air responding, basic nature of the call. In that particular instance, we were dispatched to an unresponsive male in a snowbank.
You get it.
With no real further
Skank-
information to follow up on.
Skanking. What the
So what do you
hell
do?
your name is?
So as I said, I
Your name
arrived
is
pretty early
weird.
that morning.
I don't know how to say
But
it.
hearing
I know
that
the last
dispatch and
name.
that nature of
Your
the call,
last word is
Those
boy.
typically tend to be more involved, both personnel-wise and work-wise. The crew that was working that morning was getting on the truck, and it was firefighter paramedic Anthony Flamati and firefighter EMT Matt Kelly. Matt Kelly has
Skanking
since become a paramedic, but
boy.
at the time he was an EMT. So off the bat, that crew, not to say that they were at a disadvantage, but
I tried all that.
paramedic
They don't
Flamati
work.
was the only paramedic on that
So
ambulance.
what did you do?
So I made the decision. I checked with the shift commander, and I
I'm
jumped
still
on
trying that,
ambulance
and it
one
still don't
to
work.
just give a second set of hands as being a paramedic myself, just being able to hopefully help if there was any advanced interventions that needed to be done or needed to be performed.
What
And
happened?
just a second set of hands.
What happens next?
So I got in the back of the truck. I was actually still in
Yeah,
civilian clothing
but they addicting.
at the time because I had just walked in.
Marijuana is not gonna
So,
kill you.
I got in the back of ambulance one in the patient compartment. The other two gentlemen were up front driving to the
To
the
die
scene.
from marijuana, you have to smoke
I
a
actually
pack.
had to don my
You gotta
turnout gear,
smoke a
'cause again, I
pound
was in
within an hour.
civilian
That's
clothing.
impossible.
I wasn't quite ready to go, so I had to put all my structural turnout gear on and then my can fire jacket. Once I was sufficiently
talk
dressed
about
for the
religion
call,
here.
I started prepping all the
God
gear
made
that we might
weed.
need for a call such as that, for an unresponsive male in the snow.
God
In this case,
created weed.
It was our first in bag, our airway bag, and our
Why
cardiac
would he
monitor.
want us to smoke it?
Everything was all together. They're all in three separate bags. But on the way there, I just got in. I didn't know how their night had gone, so I just took a real quick look at everything.
believe
just
in
to make sure
God,
everything was
but-
there, and everything was exactly how it needed to be. So I was able to just grab all three bags, put them on my person, and get ready to, so as soon as the ambulance was on scene, just step off and go to work.
Not knowing much information about what you're going to confront, what goes through your mind as you prepare before you get off the ambulance?
Justin, you subscribe to my
Just
channel,
basic
Justin?
scenarios. I mean, again, unresponsive male in the snow could mean several things. Not having much to go off on the dispatch was, it left
Why not?
much to be desired in terms of what we
You
might
think I'm
need.
boring,
So
right?
in gathering all the equipment together, that can kind of cover all the major bases, if you will, in terms of what we were expecting to meet.
What about you, the
How was your focus
skank?
before you get off the ambulance?
I
Skanking.
was ready to go. A dispatch like that, any unresponsive mail
You
in the
subscribe
snow,
to my channel too?
It can kind of up the level because you just don't know what you're
I'm not
walking
gonna
into.
stop
You
smoking.
it could be anything.
In the back of the ambulance, you can't see outside. Could you tell anything about the weather conditions based on the way the ambulance was moving?
Again, being in the back, as you noted, it just seemed to be taking a little bit longer than normal. I really had no visibility at all. Like I said, I was in the patient compartment. It's very limited visibility in the back, and it's limited visibility. There's like a peephole that's maybe 1.5 by 1.5 to kind of peek up front. But again, I was so busy getting everything together, I really didn't notice, but I did note it took a little bit longer. We were going not slow, but we were going cautiously.
When the ambulance finally stopped and the doors opened,
No, I
tell
won't.
the jury what you see.
So as I mentioned, I had the 2 bags and the cardiac monitor. So 3 pieces of equipment with me. And I stepped out of the back of or the side of the truck. There's a back compartment, or a back door and a side door. I stepped out of the side door.
Or somebody
And I
unlight.
immediately noted the wind had picked up and the snow seemed to be heavier. And I could hear like a
I'm
distant
32. I
screaming
just turned
off in the
32
distance.
about
Wasn't exactly
2
sure
weeks
where it was
ago.
coming from.
What was the visibility like?
It wasn't great. It was still dark out. The sun had not come up yet. The snow was coming down, as I said, heavily. And it wasn't great all around.
Was it cold?
It was cold. Yes, sir.
And so when you hear the screams, what do you do next?
I started making my way kind of towards the sound, following the sounds. I couldn't
Thank
see
you, I
anybody
appreciate
yet.
it.
So I just kind of followed the sounds. And then once I was able to get around the side of the truck, that's when
My
I was
birthday was
able
on
to
April
see
7th.
a group of 3 individuals with Canton Police. And I started making my
Gracias.
way over to them to see where the patient might be located and what was going on.
As you get closer, tell us what you see.
So as we approached the scene,
Yep, I
as
got
I
it.
said, there were 3 individuals.
Thank you,
and
Justin,
Canton Police
for
were on
not
scene as well.
subbing.
And then there was what appeared to be a human figure laying supine in the snow. I'd say about 6 to 8 feet, kind of where the sidewalk met the front lawn of a residence.
What does supine mean?
So that he was laying on his back. From there, I made my way directly over to that individual and started checking for signs of life.
How do you check? Do you get close? Do you get down on the ground?
Yep, so I knelt right at his head. Typically, to check for any signs of life, it's just as you see in TV or anything like that. You check the carotid pulse, and you check for any signs of breathing or anything like that.
Where's the carotid pulse?
So the carotid pulse would be right in the neck. Like and just real quick, 2 seconds, you can check either side. They're on both sides. Those are the strongest pulses that you can grab quickly. So I just real quick went right to that gentleman. Like I said, I looked for any
Oh, I
signs
feel
of
my
breathing. I
pulse.
found none. I checked a carotid pulse, and I found none.
How is his skin to the touch?
He was very cold to the
Wow, I
touch.
have a
He
pulse.
wasn't
That means I'm
warm?
alive.
And so after you touched his cold
Why?
skin
Because
and you felt the
going
carotid-
live
the carotid
releases
artery,
stress.
is that how you-
Yes, sir. Carotid artery.
I have people
did you
to
come to
talk
any
to when I'm
initial
lonely.
quick-
And I like you guys.
Sorry. Did you come to any initial quick
Even
assessment
when
or
there's
conclusions
nobody
on that?
here.
So I found, like I said,
I like
I checked for
talking
signs of
to
life, the carotid,
just
the signs of breathing.
talking to
I
you.
found none.
Guys, even when there's only one or
From
even
there,
2 or
we
even no
had
one
ascertained
sometimes.
that there is no
Like
signs
to
of
create
life.
content.
As I was checking that, the other 2 individuals on the ambulance came.
I don't
and
know,
met
I don't
me,
think Justin
and
likes me.
They began doing the same thing, just to check. I mean, sometimes you can look
Just
and you
because
can
I
miss.
smoke marijuana.
So the other paramedic, Anthony Flamati, started checking my work, and then we kind of went from there. But I found no signs of life in my initial.
So firefighter paramedic Flamati arrived to this person after you.
Wong, you
Yes, sir.
subscribe
I
to
was
my
the first
channel?
one to actually put hands on the individual and check for signs of life.
Did you later learn the name of this man?
I did.
And what was that?
John O'Keefe.
After you found no signs of life for John O'Keefe, did you get up and go to speak to anybody?
I did. So, as being a second set of hands on the call, it's really not my call, like in terms of treatment modalities and how we want to progress. So after I found no signs of life, I kind of got up to kind of look
I
around
usually
real quick.
like a lot of
I went
people.
over
I
to
like
the
having
individuals, the three individuals that were there, and just said, "Hey, I just have found no signs of life. We're gonna see
Okay,
see the
thank
next
you.
steps." And as I was
I don't
saying
think
that,
you're scratching
that
my
was
channels as
when
well. Oh, so
Anthony
sorry.
Flamati, who
Wow.
is the lead paramedic on this, made the decision. This is a workable cardiac arrest.
Let me ask you two questions. The first is, as a paramedic firefighter, are there times when you're the lead paramedic on a call?
Yes, sir.
And so it changes call by call, but this one was firefighter or paramedic Flamati's lead.
Correct. He was the lead paramedic on this call.
There are other times when you're the lead and firefighter or paramedic Flamati is on your crew and you lead?
Yes, sir. So we typically switch off. We'll do one, and then once my rotation is complete, we'll do the next one. So it's patient for patient, typically.
When firefighter paramedic Flamati called you back and said it was a workable situation, can you explain to the jury what that means?
Yes. So in medicine, there is a term that is, you're not dead until you're warm and dead. Meaning your core temperature, your core body temperature has to be within normal limits for it to be considered a futile attempt at resuscitation. Noting that, Tony, the other paramedic, Tony Flamati, realized that this gentleman was very cold to the touch and that this was now a hypothermic cardiac arrest, or a cardiac arrest in a hypothermic setting, which means as providers, we have a duty to initiate life-saving measures, CPR, ventilation, and continue those efforts until we get him to a hospital and a physician is able to take over and they are able to monitor his core body temperature for a certain amount of time.
When I asked you about a term you used, you said a hypothermic situation. As
Yo,
a
welcome back,
firefighter
Oliver.
paramedic treating a patient
Long time no see.
at the scene, you're not diagnosing hypothermia, are you?
No, sir.
So you're not making a medical diagnosis, you're just saying it's a hypothermic situation because of why?
Just because of the conditions, he was extremely cold to the touch, and he was in the elements. We didn't know how long, so taking the fact that he is extremely cold to the touch and he had been outside for an unknown amount of time, that quantifies it to us as a hypothermic arrest or a cardiac arrest in a hypothermic setting.
Is there anything
that's
about
cool.
Mr. O'Keefe's fingers or hands or his face that give you any indication?
Check if you
that he had
subscribe to my
been there
channel.
just
If you're
recently or
not,
had been there for a
subscribe.
while?
His fingers were quite cold. They were not well perfused at all. They were
What does
very,
that
very.
mean? I don't know. What does not perfuse mean?
Sorry, did not appear to have been any blood flow at all. Just because he was, again, presumably being outside, his fingers were very,
Thank
very
you.
white. They were very stiff, which can be signs of hypothermia and frostbite. And again, touching the neck. So typically, when you get cold, you kind of work back from your extremities in.
Yeah.
So again, I noted his fingers were quite cold, but also when I checked his carotid, his neck felt quite cold as well. That just kind of tipped us back further down the road of a hypothermic cardiac arrest.
When firefighter Flamati called you back,
Yep.
where did you go exactly?
I went, so when I was told that this is what we're doing, I turned around and I went right back to where I previously knelt, which was right at Mr.
That's
O'Keefe's head.
somebody
And
testifying
then I took
in a
over
trial,
the
I'll be
ventilation
following.
aspect of a cardiac arrest. So I was in charge of the airway. So
All
I
right, have a
began
good
giving
night.
him positive pressure ventilations with that valve mask, which is just a glorified balloon that you can push oxygen through and down into your respiratory tract to get oxygen moving. While I was doing that, I believe firefighter EMT
Yeah, I'm
Kelly
good.
had begun CPR.
So is this fair to say it's a team effort,
Yes, sir.
a coordinated effort?
Very much so.
And depending on where you're placed, whether in the back of the ambulance or driving or leading, does everybody have an important role to play?
Yes. Yeah, we work in conjunction with each other. Typically, the most well-defined roles in a cardiac arrest in EMS is your airway monitor, which is myself in this situation, and then your cardiac and medication administration, which is that would be Anthony Flamati, that would be Tony. Just because of my position at the head, I just took over the ventilation aspect, and that was where I remained throughout the call.
You said you went back to try to help Mr. O'Keefe, and you were helping at the airway. Do you have to actually get on the ground to do that?
Yes, sir, I was kneeling at his head.
While you were kneeling at his head, well, let me ask you more of a background question. Is it helpful to get information about the history of the person when you're trying to treat them when you happen upon a scene and you don't know the history?
Yes, sir, very much. Getting information on medications, history, and allergies is.
Oh, thank you for
top
coming back. I
priorities in
appreciate it,
just
Taka.
any call, not even this
Taka.
call, just really any your run-of-the-mill fall or chest pain. There's typically the first questions that we ask: what medications are you on? What medical history do you have? And do you have any allergies? The medical history is important because if you've had heart attacks in the past, or just using a generalized example, if you've had heart attacks in the past, does this feel like a previous heart attack? It kind of gives us something to go off of.
As you were kneeling, I want you to take us to that moment. As you're kneeling, trying to help Mr. O'Keefe, did you have a chance at any point to look up?
I did.
And when you looked up when you were trying to help Mr. O'Keefe, can you tell us who you saw?
I saw a middle-aged middle-aged female with blood on her face. And real quick, as I was in the process of providing ventilations, I said, do you know this person?
The person that you looked up and saw that was standing over you with blood on her face, do you recognize that person in this courtroom?
Yes, sir.
With the court's permission, sir, could you point out that person that you looked up and saw?
It's, in between Mr. Jackson or next to Mr. Jackson.
I see. So when you looked up and saw
Can't really read.
that person and asked about any background, what did she say to you?
I hit him.
How clearly do you remember her words saying to you, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him?
I remember it very distinctly.
You've been to a lot of calls over the years and since.
Yes, sir.
Would you say hundreds or thousands?
Thousands.
Do you remember all of them?
I remember aspects of various calls, but not all of them, no.
Do some stand out more than others?
Yes, sir.
Did this particular moment stand out more as compared to your typical or most calls that you've been to?
It did, just because of the setting. I mean, it was the weather, it was the unknown factors, and it was the attempting to try and get information and not really being able to glean anything from that.
After the defendant said to you, I hit him, I hit him, I hit him, did you ask any follow-up questions?
I really didn't get a chance to, because following that, the individual just kind of walked away, or just kind of went in a different direction. I wasn't able to ask any follow-up questions.
Have you ever received any police training?
No, sir.
Are you a police officer?
No, sir.
When you're helping a patient, do you have any interest in detective work?
No, sir.
Do you have any interest in investigating potential crimes?
At that time, in this particular instance, because I was at the airway, that is a pretty critical aspect of a cardiac arrest. I was stuck there. I couldn't get up and kind of follow up on that at all. I was there doing that ventilation.
Is it your job to investigate cases or simply to get information to help treatment?
Just the information.
When you go out as a firefighter paramedic, do you have a purposeful cause?
Yes, sir.
And what is that?
To save lives.
And is that your only focus?
In this instance, it was attempting to restore circulation and breathing.
At some point with your colleagues, did you lift Mr. O'Keefe from the ground?
We did.
When you lift him, what do you put him on?
So we put him on, it's called a scoop stretcher. It's basically just a hard plastic moving device with some seatbelts on it, just to get the patient up and onto the stretcher. And then from there, we can move from the stretcher to the ambulance.
After you lift him to the stretcher, tell us what happens next.
So we put Mr. O'Keefe on the scoop stretcher, and we were able to get him onto the stretcher itself and then off to the ambulance. From there, I maintained my role as the airway individual on this call. So we made our way to the ambulance. I got in the tech seat, which is directly behind where the stretcher locks in. So I had access to the airway again. I was continuing to provide positive pressure ventilations to Mr. O'Keefe, and
I'll be back,
we
guys,
put
later.
in an
Thank you for
OPA as
joining
well,
us.
which is just a plastic hook, if you will. It just keeps the tongue from falling back into the airway, so we can